What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Age of Quarantine. My name is Chris Enriquez, and I'm your host. I'm so excited to be here tonight because the first show I ever went to without parental supervision in New York City at Roseland with Sick of It All opening was in 1995, and it was to go see Helmet, who were just hot off the album Betty, and they had a hit single at the time, Milk Toast and Biscuits for Smut. And goddamn, man, that fucking changed my life. If I never was at that show, I just don't know where I would be here today. I'm just totally humbled by this opportunity. I've interviewed so many people, but to me, this is like probably the biggest deal. Paige has generously agreed to do this with me, and we're gonna go into the history of Helmet and his musical career. And he's done a lot. He's done a lot of stuff that you may not have realized. I don't want to give away too much, but maybe you didn't know that he was David Bowie's guitar player for a while. Really interesting backstory, and for any of you, which are a lot of you here in New York, this is going to be a lot of cool history going into New York culture. They were a band that existed at a time with, New York is very well known for hardcore, but what kind of gets skipped oftentimes is the noise rock scene. When you talk about the noise rock scene in New York, you have everybody from Cop Shoot Cop to Bark Market, Unsane, early days of Swans, Helmet, and Quicksand, who did come from the hardcore scene, but similar sort of thing that they all had in common. And Helmet was, I think, probably, if I'm not mistaken, the first to get that kind of MTV exposure. And I'm just kind of rambling here because not only do I have so much to say about this band, but I think we're still waiting for Paige to join us. So, there isn't a lot that, I could go on, and I will as we're waiting. But that band went on to put out some of the most important records that I think existed for heavy music, because as you kind of move on to, what later on became nu metal and all that stuff, it just feels like, Helmet's influence is very obvious there. And while they took a break, the band came back, and they've been just continuing to put out great records, and thank God, because Paige is one of the greatest songwriters, I think, of all time. So to have him still touring and playing these amazing songs for us has been a treat. The 30-year anniversary of Meantime was quite a show to see. Let me see if he's joined us yet. I don't think he has, so I'm going to keep rambling if it's okay with you guys. Just bear with me, and then we'll get him on. Yeah, he's not ready yet, so I'm just going to keep going. But my friend Dave K started playing bass in Helmet a few years ago, and recently I became homies with Kyle Stevenson, who has been killing it on the drums. And for those of you who may have kind of snoozed, a lot of these records are great. Size Matters was an incredible return for the band, and they've just continued to come out with amazing record after record. And so let me get Paige, let me text him and let him know I'm on right now. Okay. We're just going to hang tight, guys, and thanks for tuning in and spending your Monday with me. Hopefully you guys are staying warm wherever you are. Here in New York, we're dealing with a snowstorm, and I couldn't be more thankful to spend it here with you and with one of my favorite front people. So there he is, Paige Hamilton. I'm going to send you an invite right now. I see he has joined. This is awesome. There you are. Sent you an invite. Let's see if you got it, and hopefully you will be appearing before us. I gotta say, when I saw Helmet in '95, if you told me I'd be interviewing this guy at some point in my life, I would tell you that you're crazy. Paige Hamilton, what's up, man?
Not much, Chris. How you doing?
Oh, man, I'm so glad we figured that out. We don't have to explain to anybody what happened, but it all worked out, so it's all that matters.
Social media idiot and don't know how to use Graham, yeah.
No, you're not. You're just you have a one up on the world because you live in reality and everyone else lives in this alternate bubble. So,
How you guys doing? I saw you got a couple of feet of snow. It's kind of hot here in LA.
oh, you are lucky. I mean, you know what it's like because you lived here forever. You know what we're dealing with right now.
When we did Betty, I remember you could walk on the top of cars. Like the snow was so deep, and I was drunk Polish cab driver, drunk on vodka, drove me up there after a couple of days when we got out and about. And yeah, I know it well. I remember it well. That was '93 or something like that. So
I can't wait to talk about. Selfishly, I can't wait to ask you questions about that are centric to New York because of the fact that this is where I'm from, and
yeah.
I saw Helmet in '95, and it changed my life. So I just have so many cool questions for you. But
Cool.
you know, one thing we have in common that I have to bring up. Most of the time, I ask my guests how the pandemic affected their schedule. One thing you and I have in common is that both of our bands, my band Spotlights, we were supposed to open up for Faith No More and Helmet, and it got canceled.
Yeah.
What a bummer. So did you have other stuff scheduled that got affected by all this?
We had just done the U.S. and Europe and U.S. for the 30th anniversary tour. And we had a break after December, and then we were heading to Australia, New Zealand, Japan to continue the 30th tour thing, the 30 by 30 by 30, and then South America also. So in between we had these shows at this football stadium here with System of a Down, Faith No More, and Korn and stuff.
Right.
That got moved from May to this May. Now it's moved to, I don't know if I'm supposed to say yet, but next October. So fingers crossed. So we're planning, this is what we're planning. We'll do those shows with System of a Down and Korn and Faith No More that we were planning on doing, and then do a tour either before or after or something like that in the fall. So just hopefully that'll happen. We had also that tour you're talking about after we got back, because we're going to go back to Europe after Australia, New Zealand, Japan, do a 3-week festival thing and some headline shows, and then go on that tour. We're supposed to start in August and at the in Brooklyn at that the Normo place.
Barclays.
Barclays.
Yeah.
So we haven't heard whether that tour is going to happen yet.
Neither have we. So yeah, we were actually going to be on separate legs of it. It wasn't going to be at the same time, which is a bummer.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah. I mean, we hope it happens. We've toured with the very first kind of major label band that we ever toured with was Faith No More.
Right.
Trying to Interscope, and Meantime had just come out, and then we toured with Korn in I think it was 97 after Aftertaste, 96, 97, something like that. It was like one of the last tours we did before we broke up.
That's that's been talked about a lot by friends of mine, and in the comments while I was getting ready, I was seeing people talking about that. That's an insane tour. Well, since we're going back a little bit, that's the whole thing I like to do here is I like to take a trip down memory lane, if that's okay with you. We have roughly an hour, and I'd like to kind of go through this glorified therapy session, if you will.
Oh, I'm sorry I wasn't prepared, and I thought, we're just going to talk. I didn't know it was a live thing or whatever. I showered and shaved for the first time all week, so it's a good thing. Okay.
You look great. And if anybody out there has questions, there's a question mark box on the bottom of the screen, or you can leave them in the comments, and I will do my best about half past the hour to get to those questions. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. So Paige, Helmet is known for being an essential New York band, but you are not originally from New York. Can you talk? I know where you're from, but I want you to tell us, where are you from, and talk about how your upbringing, whether it's your family or your environment, impacted your musical development.
I'll try to make a long story short. I was born in Portland, Oregon. Mom and Dad, my brother and I were born there. They moved to Southern Oregon, and where my sister was born. And then I went to University of Oregon, and as a pre-med major, flunked out my first year because I just wanted to drink and get high. Decided I wanted to be a music major, so I went to Lane Community College. Learned to read music, and started studying classical guitar and jazz guitar at the community college. And then after a year, I auditioned. Actually, after 6 months, I auditioned at the university, and I got in on both. Finished that, and then I just was dying to live in New York. taken a family there when I was 17, and I just fell in love with it. The energy and all my jazz heroes came from, like Monk and Coltrane from North Carolina, and Charlie Parker from Kansas City, and Louis Armstrong from New Orleans. People just, everybody ended up in New York, and that's where this incredible music called bebop was born. And I got there. I got my master's degree at Manhattan School of Music, and I started auditioning for bands in the Village Voice, just like opening up the Village Voice and going in and auditioning, and some cover bands, and it's like out in Queens, and a band downtown in East Village, I remember. And I remember telling the band downtown, they're like, well, you're really good. We'd love to have you in the band. I go, you guys are too loud. And they're probably complete asshole now because, they formed Helmet. But yeah, and then I was in Band of Susans, record with them, did some touring. It was my kind of first time to Europe on tour in a band in 1988. And I brought some songs to them, and they said, these are cool. Robert Poss, the leader of the band, he's like, these are cool, but they're not right for a band. So I decided to form Helmet, and I used the Village Voice again. It was a free paper, actually $1 back then, I think.
I used to live across the street from the Village Voice.
Remind me where it is. Like, I want to say Lafayette.
It was on the Bowery. It was kind of like where the Bowery and Broadway sort of cross.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So Cooper Union.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. And that's kind of it. We started playing. The guys would poster and I would write. And we recorded 8-track, 4 songs, 8-track on Fury's studio and on Spring Street.
On Spring Street, yeah, legendary.
Yeah, it was great. It's 8-track. We did Born Annoying, Rumble, Shirley MacLaine, and Geisha to Go. And we started I sent cassette tapes out, and I was kind of a smart ass because I would say these labels, if you don't, I don't know why, but like, if you don't like this tape, burn it or whatever, and don't, but Hazelmeyer got back to us at AMRIP, and he said, I want to put out Born Annoying and Rumble. Here's the deal. You guys, we had already paid for the recording and mixing, and he paid for mastering and pressing, and we just went around to record stores in the city and sold them. And and I went to CBGB's with the same cassette demo tape, and we talked to Louise and said, we want to play. And she was, it's Hilly and Louise sitting up front at CB's, and typical, Louise completely dry and expressionless. She's like, well, I might listen to it in a couple of weeks, but if you want to play, just come audition. And I'm like, when's the next date? She said, this Sunday. I think it was Sunday or Monday they had audition night.
Well, no, Monday was audition night.
Okay, yeah. So coincidentally, Mike Kirkland from Prong, the bassist from Prong, was working the floor. Tommy Victor from Prong was doing front of house.
Yes.
Those guys, we played with, like, one band I remember was kind of Night Rangery. One girl was like Joan Baez. It was a really strange, evening of auditioning, and they wrote in their book, booked this band immediately. So we started playing CBs every month, and that's kind of how we got going. And we went to the Pyramid. We did Lismar Lounge. The first gig we ever played was at a place called Louderbacks in Brooklyn.
Okay. Oh, wow. So your first show's in Brooklyn. Can you believe that the Pyramid Lounge is still there? It's still there.
Pyramid?
It's the only place that's still there, but no one ever talks about it. It's so wild because everything's gone, but that place is still there.
Do they still have rock shows?
They have more like dance parties, techno shows, and
Yeah.
goth stuff. Like, I think they might. Oh no, I'm lying. Yeah, they do still have bands play there. Like the Chrome Hags actually just played there about a year or two ago. So yeah, they still have shows.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was great. I've had an apartment in East Village on First Avenue and Second Street for a million years. So it's Pyramid was easy to get to. And we actually, the first time we played with Nirvana was there. We opened for Nirvana, I
hear about that show a lot. It's legendary. It's one for the books. Yeah, you guys are Nirvana.
It was great. They were already kind of a big deal. They were on Sub Pop, and we had only played a couple of shows. And years later, we opened for Sonic Youth in Australia, and Thurston said, yeah, it's like, I saw you guys open for Nirvana, and he goes, I just didn't get it. It was so aggressive and just, loud. And he said, now it's good to see you guys every night. I totally get it. It's amazing. And, I think when we first came out, we were just like this wall of shit,
Right. Who was saying that? Was it the guys was it Sonic Youth that was saying that?
Moore, yeah, from Sonic.
Thurston Moore. I got a funny question for you while we're going around. I have questions in front of me, and I'm going to jump around, but I actually, so Renee, shout out to Renee, he's watching. Thank you for making this happen.
Hey, Renee.
Renee's great. He brought me to that helmet show that I saw you at for the first time. But he mentioned I work at Revolver magazine, and I also used to work at Guitar World. Now, the editor in chief at Guitar World told me his name is Brad Talinsky.
Yeah.
Yes, he told me, and you can tell me if this is true, that he shared a practice space in the Lower East Side with Helmet and Sonic Youth, and that there were guitars all over the walls that belonged to Thurston because they had different guitars for each song in certain tunings. Is this all kind of?
Yeah, it was on Mott Street.
Okay.
I'm probably not remembering the I want to say it was 262 Mott. Does that sound right? I can't. It was.
Oh, somebody actually said Mott Street. Yeah.
Yeah, right around the corner from the Ravenite Social Club where Gotti and his mafia dudes were. Because I would eat at a place called Panini. It's like a half block down and a block over, and I'd eat there every day and see these guys, with their golf shirts and gold chains. I'm not thinking anything of it, but yeah, it was like a third sub basement, so you had to go down. I actually wrote Meantime down there. The songs, most of the songs for that album, Unsung, I wrote at my apartment with my now ex-wife.
Wow.
But there was at one point we were there was a raid because I think people were growing weed, and I heard gunshots, and I was like, I just light off and put the latch on because I'd have socks and I'd cut the heels and toes out to keep my hands, put my hands in it and play guitar. Little shitty space heater, and that's where I wrote those songs.
That is wild, man. And I'm here. The Beastie Boys were down there too.
I never saw them down there. They could have been though. There was a band, Weigels, that were Trisha Weigel, who I dated for a minute. Really sweet, pretty girl. It was a great singer.
Did you say Divinals?
The Weigels.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking about that song. Every time I think about you, I touch myself. Different band.
That's Martha. She was married to my friend Charlie Drayton, who's a great drummer. She passed away from cancer.
Wow.
Singer. But in this other band, the two guys that had the space were the Braun brothers. I want to say Dan and something. They were twins, and it was their space, so we paid the rent to them. And
interesting.
Brad was down there.
Yeah, he told me this when we were working together, and I had to ask about it. That was one of my questions I was going to ask. But
oh, cool.
Going back for a second, what was the first time? Like, what were the artists that had a big impact on you growing up before you turned into Page from Helmet? Like as you're sort of developing. I want to know about that and sort of how you kind of came to find your footprint.
Yeah, if I go way back, it's like my cousins playing me the Beatles, the Monkees, and Kiss. Those three things when I was really young, and then Jim Croce or something. And I heard this America song on the radio when I was car sick as a kid, and it cured me from my car sickness, and I knew there was something to this whole music thing. And so then I got into the Eagles, and then once I heard Led Zeppelin, I actually got 2 copies of this album by Rod Stewart for Christmas one year. I took one to Payless drugstore where I bought my records and swapped it out. I love this cover with the old man and the bundle of sticks on it. Ron and Black Dog started, and the rest is history. It just changed my life. That
makes so much sense because of that groove. Knowing your music, that groove had to have a big impact.
Very few people saw the parallels. This A&R guy that signed Soundgarden that had tried to sign Helmet, he's like, "You guys have a Zepp thing, Cashmere." And I go, 3 against 4. That's what I mean. Glenn Branca obviously was a huge influence as well because Glenn was doing that kind of thing where drummer Stephen or Morton would be playing in 4 and we would be playing like bop 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 or bop.
Right. Well, you guys are a lot trickier. But I've covered your songs. I'm going to admit that right now. And it's the thing that you do that's so masterful is that it sounds simple. Some of it sounds simple, not all of it. And then when you actually try to play it, I'm a drummer, so when I try to play along with some of your songs, I'm just like, oh wow, that is not exactly on this sort of
It should sound like I love AC/DC, and they're people that don't get AC/DC probably don't really get music, because know, the great bassist from the Pretenders and played with James Brown and Miles Davis, T.M. Stevens. He told me once, he came on our bus and we were playing at in Jersey, the Stone Pony, and he said, "You got helmets like a big bowl of ice cream, and it's like this." And you dig in and there's spinach inside. And I was like, I thought that was pretty accurate. Yeah, it's not like, I know some people said, oh, it's math equations. I'm like, it's actually not math equations. I don't sit down and intellectually work that stuff out.
Right.
Now that we're in COVID and I've been teaching and people have asked me about specific songs, I'm kind of reverse engineering and going in. It's like, well, I wasn't thinking this when I wrote it, but this is in D minor. And then it goes to the 4 chord, which is a G Dorian, you know, and I'll go in and I'm kind of figuring out, but it's just stuff you write what you hear. And that's where it came from. I was always on the subway, you know, because I used to live way uptown and I was bartending downtown in East Village. And I would have these late night subway rides, or like, you know, 5 in the morning on Saturday nights. And I would just like, you know, New York has such a, like sonically, it's such an assault. And it's such, for a kid coming from a small town in Oregon, it was just this amazing. I was just infatuated with kind of, as Steely Dan put it, the mechanized hum of another world, the subway sounds and smells and noises and stuff. And it's very, very, you know, there's a lot of rhythm to me. I mean, it was this kind of industrial.
I know exactly what you're talking about. And I'm so glad that you're getting into this right now, because I wanted to know how the environment here affected, because your music to me sounds like New York in every way, especially in the 90s. It was a soundtrack to just walking around. It just felt like your music resonated, you know, walking around St. Mark's or the Bowery, you know?
Yeah, I can't help but have influenced the writing and the playing. And we were 4 guys that didn't come from New York. John was from Florida, Henry and I were from Oregon, and Peter was from Australia. And so we went to New York to play music, and we met there, and it had a huge, you know, obviously a huge impact on us. That and the fact that I could go see Don Cherry play at Continental when it was the restaurant, or I saw play there. I saw, you know, Sonny Rollins and Tony Bennett and Ray Charles, and I mean, I saw this amazing music, you know, living there, because you could walk a few blocks and see great music, you know. And that was,
dude, I fucking cannot believe you got to see that stuff. I mean, it's one thing to have been around for like some of the early rock stuff, but to the names that you just mentioned at that time in that location had to have been life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely, no question about it. I never took it for granted ever. I loved being there. I love being part of that. I mean, obviously CB's as well. You know, the history there was, and I kind of, Robert Poss and the Band of Susans folks kind of got me into that music, because I had just finished jazz school, so I was kind of a jazz nerd, and I didn't, you know, and I started working at Rockpool after I left Band of Susans because I needed a job. And I just started listening to all the records they had at Rockpool. I was, you know, Killing Joke and Wire and Gang of Four, Bones, Buzzcocks, all this. I was discovering, I was going, what, you know, I was like, rock music is not dead. You know, there's still a lot you can do with the electric guitar, you know, and that was inspiring. So I've kind of done my time in the jazz world and got back into rock. Because when I was in the 70s in high school, I loved Zepp and I loved AC/DC and Sabbath, and I loved Nugent and Aerosmith, and but then stuff started coming along that didn't really float my boat. My friends were like, "You don't like Boston Journey?" They're really good bands. I know they're really good players and good. It's good. I just, for some reason, it didn't connect with me, you know. And so once I discovered jazz, I was like, I guess that was kind of my punk rock, you know. Charlie Parker.
That's so cool, because your jazz playing is what, well, we get a glimpse of that in certain areas of your soloing, and certainly on the more obvious one on Betty, there's that track that you know, where you really kind of like show that, because I don't think that like you were ever as upfront on any of the records up until that point, you know, until you got to Betty, where you really just like let it all out there with the jazz playing. Am I correct?
Yeah, people, you know, people say, I don't hear jazz in your music. I'm like, well, we're not a jazz band. You know,
right.
Stanier and Bogdan weren't sitting around listening to jazz. John would listen to hip hop and drum and bass music, and Henry was listening to Saul Hu'upi'i and Hank Williams. You know, he was really into the Latin feel and stuff, and so we didn't, our listening taste didn't really meld. John turned me on to a lot of stuff. You know, Henry too saw who Pete was this amazing Hawaiian lap steel player. But you know, I was listening to I go through phases where it was Ray Vaughan Williams all the time, or Monk or whatever, and then I got into Elvis Costello, and you know, really late, much later than when he came out. And great music's going to stick around, and you're going to discover it in some way if you're open to
Oh,
it.
totally. I mean, there's so many bands that people like. You know, I wasn't around for when Black Flag was a band. I never saw them, you know, but they're one of my favorite bands, you know.
Yeah.
With you talked a little bit about how you met the guys, and you were saying it was through the Village Voice at the time is how you met your bandmates at the time.
Everyone except for Peter. Peter's then wife, Renee Kukuro, who worked at Rockpool, and she's the one that paid for the ad in the Village Voice for me because I didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. She was I started putting this band together, and she's like, "That's great, you know, this is going to be great. You're really good." And she's like, "My husband Peter is a good guitar player," because I wanted a second guitarist, and so we started hanging out, and you know, it was mostly debauchery, late nights, and doing things we shouldn't have been doing, but we became friends, and then we started playing together. So for all intents and purposes, formed the band. Actually, sitting at lunch at Elephant Castle one day, Peter's sister was there from Australia, and it was Peter and I and Renee and his sister, and we were always joking about band names. And Renee was infatuated with Nick Cave, and I studied classical guitar in Germany, and you know, as a student, a college student, and so she was always asking me things about German. Say something in German, and so one of the names she goes, Helmut. She just said the word Helmut, like the name, like Helmut, Helmut Newton, the photographer, and I was like, Helmut. I was like, yes, like it just kind of
wow. So that's the story of the band name.
Yeah, we were sitting having lunch at Elephant Castle, and she was like, one of the names, she was like, the smell of it, you know, and I was like, no, you know, and then that was gonna be, how about froth albumin? No, you know, so we had these stupid names, and then she said Helmut, and I was like, boom, that's it. Peter first was a little no, and I'm like, think about it, man, it's perfect, and that was it.
That is so cool, man.
John and Henry, and that was it. So.
Yeah. So we jumped around a little bit, and this goes by quick, by the way, even though it doesn't feel like it. We're already half past the hour, which means we have another half an hour left. But I hear a lot of similarities, even though all of the bands I'm about to list are very unique in their own way. But the early days, meaning around the late 80s, early 90s, in New York, there were bands like Unsane, Cop Shoot Cop, and also you know, Quicksand, of course, and you guys. There's something similar about all of these bands in a way. So, you know, I hate to sound redundant, but do you feel like you know, you talk about your influence and stuff like that, but as far as like what was going on at that time and how you kind of congealed to be the Helmet that we've all come to know, you know, like, were you influenced by some of your peers, or what do you think was a coincidence?
I mean, both. We wouldn't have been influenced early on because I hadn't heard those bands. But when we started playing at CB's, Tom and Mike from Prongs said one of the things we wrote in the book at CB's is this band should play with bands like Cop Shoot Cop and Unsane. And so when I first saw those bands, I was like, fuck yeah, like this is, you know, and it was, I think that there was an interesting thing. There was I know what you mean. None of the bands sound the same, but I think there's an aesthetic. And I think one thing that I'm not going to be old curmudgeon and it's like, back then, you know, but it was really important that a band had its own energy, its own vibe. You know, I mean, we'd go see Sonic Youth, or I'd see Prong, and you kind of end up influencing each other, I think, to a certain extent, you know, like down the road. The first year of the band, not at all, because we were just 4 guys that came together, and
right.
I happened to be walking home one night really late, and I got the first kind of Helmet riff in my head. I had already written Shirley MacLaine, Geisha to Go, Born in Oil,
Wow.
Rumble, but when I was walking home, I'd seen a show, I think at the Pyramid. I was walking up Avenue A at like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I got this this New York kind of repetitive pattern thing in my head, which happened to me all the time. Like I would always get this, and it was like when I wrote Bad Mood, I went to get the band coffee. We were taking a break in the music building, and I came back up, and I'm like, dudes, check it out. I have this da na 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 na, and we're gonna go da na na, and repetition. I'm walking home that night, and I get this riff in my head, it's kind of annoying because I think
right.
Like I'm my ADHD or Tourette's or whatever the fuck it is. I get this
I'm with you.
Not get out of my head. So I pick up my guitar at 4 a.m. or whatever, and the note I was hearing was off. Was like this. It was down.
Right.
So I'm like, shit. I have to tune the guitar down to get that note because I was about to, I don't know. And
right.
So I drop tuning, and every sort of cliche that I played, like I always sound like AC/DC or Husker Du or whatever, went away because I was in drop tuning and I didn't know anything. I didn't know any chords.
So that's how you came to the drop tuning.
Yeah, that's how.
Because before that, the Born Annoying stuff is a little slightly different. Was that before or after that?
Born Annoying was before that.
But yeah, I was gonna say, which is awesome. There's almost like a post-punk kind of krautrock maybe sound on that. Let me ask you this too. Was Swans kind of like a part of that influence? Prong makes total sense.
Loved them, but again, I came to those bands later. Like we're talking, 2 years into the band, I saw the Swans at CDs. I actually saw Lou, because I knew Lou from Dinosaur, because Dinosaur and Helmet had toured together.
Oh, okay.
With Rape Man in Europe. And his first show ever with Sebadoh was opening for the Swans, and I remember talking to him afterwards, and I go, that's really cool. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, you should do this. You should do this band thing. I'm like, it's cool. And he's like, I don't know, he was reluctant, whatever. So obviously he did incredibly well, and then made an album called Sebadoh versus Helmet, which I never asked him about. I don't know what the fuck that was about, but it's it wasn't. I still look at things like you're writing themes. It's like metal riffs, rock riffs are like orchestral motifs, right? It's a rhythmic melodic fragment. It's something like in meantime is one note, ba da 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 da.
Yeah.
And it's so you get these rhythmic figures in your head, and hopefully you will hear the pitches. Here's some pitches to go with it, you know what I mean? But it's not. I'm not hearing I'm not hearing shit like that. I'm hearing caveman stuff. The
caveman thing, and the fact that you mentioned AC/DC so much, which I can't believe I've never sort of connected the dots.
Yeah.
It makes so much sense. We've spent a lot of time on the whole sound, and I want to talk about actual landmark things that took place throughout your career. I'm going to jump around again to go forward a little bit because I'm afraid of running out of time. But at what point, you had Strap It On, and then eventually, meantime, you get signed to a major label. How strange is that? At that time, bands like Helmet and the Melvins, who I know you toured with at the time, and you did a great cover of Oven, by the way, which is awesome. But can you talk about the time period in which you're in this band that you just started with your friends, and suddenly you're going to be part of this machine? How does this all happen for you?
Yeah, I did an interview yesterday. I was actually addressed this. The Hazelmeyer at AMRAP said, I can't take it anymore. I'm getting so many calls at the label. You guys are too big for the label. He
wow,
said that to me, and he said, you got to go. I know this guy Dave Ayers who works at Twin Tone. He works at Soul Asylum. He can help you out. But I just so we had actually, when we did the in the meantime recording, we did that with FBLA2, an original version of that, and a song called Rock Messiah with Albini. And Albini was sat down in his living room and he wrote on paper, major label, indie label. This is why you don't do this. It makes sense for you. And I was like, we have no choice at this point. We had a different situation. And all my friends, supposedly I knew everything about the music business. I got a manager. And he gave me a book by Donald Passman and said, read about the music business. So I read about the music business. And so when Quicksand and Alan from Quicksand called me.
Alan's a friend of mine. I love Alan. Yeah.
Dave from Jawbox. the Cows. I met with them. They were like, we want to go to a major label. What do we do? I said, don't do it. We got lucky. A hit, kind of, you know. But Unsung had already been played on that radio station out in Long Island, you know.
WDRE or WLIR.
Yeah, one of those. They would play like a tour, and then they were playing Unsung when it was a 7-inch on AMRAP. So we already kind of had, you know, some clout when we went in. So we didn't go in this thing like we're at their mercy. And I said I want to get paid for sure, and I want complete creative control. And we were in the position to be able to do that. So.
Wow. This is with Interscope.
We had built our following on our own, you know, just by getting in a van and disconnecting the odometer and driving around the country and playing. And then we went to Europe is when it kind of exploded, you know, for us. So that's that. It was weird. I mean, I was kind of reluctant on one hand, and I remember, you know, I'm friends with them now. Like I saw Patton in Santiago at a festival, and it was like I'd seen him yesterday. He's just totally great. But before we went on tour with Faith No More, it was the first major label band. I was like, I don't know about this, man. He's like, and like, I don't know if it, and then you meet them and they're just good dudes, and you know, and whatever, and became friends, and I got over it, you know. And Interscope did a great job because they were a small label at the time, and they gave us some attention. So all you have to do is get the music in front of people so they can hear it, you know. And that's the thing that, you know, a lot of indie labels weren't equipped to do at the time, for us anyway. So
that was an interesting time to be around playing rock music in the early 90s, where you could be in the situation you were in, and it really paid off greatly.
Our Scrap It On came out. It was unavailable because the Rough Trade. We had printed the record. It was sitting in boxes on the floor in San Francisco. Apparently, like they had gone up. Happened. So we got a record out. We can't even sell it. So there were a lot of things that led us to the situation that we got in. And I mean, cut to all those years later when the band broke up, when I moved to Los Angeles after September 11th and my disastrous marriage and the band, you know, all that stuff happened. I needed to, you know, get my shit together. And I ended up signing with Interscope again, and we're talking 2004 or whatever. And at that point,
Size Matters.
Huh? Size Matters, yeah.
Size Matters, yeah.
Sold bazillions of records with, you know, Dre and Eminem and Nine Inch Nails and No Doubt and all those bands, and it was a completely different place for us then.
Right.
Own a big pile of shit with all the other bands, and they didn't do anything, you know. So it's now we have you know, a little label in Germany that does our stuff, and it's cool. We're coming out with a little 4-song cover box set with this.
Oh wow.
Did you see the artwork I did where they had the glove with the lights on it, and I played guitar in the dark?
Yeah.
That's the album cover, and it's like 7 inches. We're doing 7 inches, and so the label's great. You know, I have communication with them, and it you know, works. We wouldn't be right on a huge major label right now.
I can't wait to check that out, man. Man, like Size Matters, I wanted to get to because I love that record. And by the way, speaking of that era, my last guest on Friday was Frankie Bello, and he told me to tell you that he wants to give you a big sweaty hug. I don't know if that's an inside joke between you guys or something, but he said you would understand. He's the best. Before we sort of move on to sort of where we're at today, I just want to focus a little bit more on this time period when the band was like in this mainstream sort of bubble. You had videos that were on MTV, Beavis and Butthead. You're playing on 120 Minutes and Jon Stewart, and then Betty comes out, and you're still continuing on this path. You got Milk Toast and Biscuits for Smut. That's when I found you guys, and I was like blown away. The trajectory of like your sort of like push in that direction, I believe, and you can tell me how you feel about this, in a weird way, you guys in Faith No More are credited for really starting nu metal without really even being aware of that. Do you look at some of the bands that came after you and realize that, or think that? Like how does being in your shoes feel when you hear something like that?
You know, I'm to be honest with you, I'm not super familiar with the music of a lot of the bands that we've supposedly influenced. Heard them, I've heard Limp Bizkit and Korn and the Deftones and trying to think what a System of a Down and stuff. And they've all those guys in all those bands I've met have been incredibly cool. I mean, Don told me, he's like, I told you were going to influence me, you know, and because they heard it open for the Melvins in Minneapolis when they were opening for Prong. Pantera.
Which band was that?
Huh?
Which band was that?
Pantera.
Oh, Pantera.
Yeah. And because they were opening for Prong in Minneapolis in the big room, we were opening for the Melvins in the small room. And I listened to Mind Over 4, and then I checked out Pantera. I was like, holy shit, this is Cowboys from Hell. Then we played next in the small room, and I said, man, I don't know if you guys heard that band, but it's fucking amazing. I heard this. Thanks. And look down, and they're all kind of down in front of us. And so when we got to Dallas, those guys showed up, and we were in the parking lot at Trees, and they were writing their album. And Dime said, I told you you're going to influence me. I was like, like the riff from Unsung shows up in a song. And
oh, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Phil played it for me over the phone once, Phil Anselmo. It's like, and so like, I mean, you're flattered that other musicians, people who start bands, are turned on by what you do. I mean, I met everyone from Gene Simmons to Tommy Lee and Billy Idol, and said, they were Helmet fans, and it's like it's I'm just you're still just you still have to do what you do, you know what I mean? And it doesn't change the course of your life. It doesn't change what your musical path is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Trent Reznor, went through a period when I was leaving my wife where I was staying in New Orleans at his studio, and he was really gracious, and he Limp Bizkit came on, and he said, he made some comment. He goes, you started this or something. It's like, you got to or whatever. And I was like, I don't know. Those guys are nice guys, I mean, I saw Fred a couple of, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and he's great. And did an interview with Wes 3 or 4 years ago for that. I think it was the Move doc, whatever. Good, good guy. Nice guys. It's
that's awesome. I mean, it has to be brought up because I don't know how many people are aware of that now. I like to remind them that, but for someone my age, it was obvious. There was a thing happening, and a lot of people around me were like, "Oh, this is Helmet or Faith No More." It was one or the other, or both, kind of mixed together. That's why I was really excited about the tour. So hope Anyway, won't harp back on that, but let me talk about very briefly, because again, we're running out of time, and I want to talk about where things are at now, because you put out so many great records since then and whatnot. But when the band broke up, you just made Aftertaste, which is actually like one of my favorite records you ever did, and I was so bummed. When you got back together, I know you did the David Bowie thing. I want to talk about too, because that's insane. But you were playing with David Bowie for a little bit, and then you eventually get the band back together and do Size Matters. Was there talk of getting the original lineup together again at all? And are you still cool with those guys? Like, where does that stand?
I don't remember. I had moved to Los Angeles. I met Johnny Tempesta through Renee. I wasn't really familiar with White Zombie. I had heard that one hit, which is the same riff as Born Annoying chorus, but is also Magic Man from Heart. But it's not like I wrote it. And I met with Johnny and just loved him, and we got together in a room and started playing, and it was just immediate click to me. This guy's one of the phenomenal drummers in the world, and I've been so lucky to have these amazing drummers in my life, because you're only a drummer, And so we started playing, and then Blasco, who was in a Zombie with John.
Oh yeah, he's a good friend of mine as well. Yeah.
Yeah, we were hanging out at Viper Room one night watching the metal. What were they called back then? Steel Panther Metal Shop, Metal School, something like that.
Okay.
Just having beers, and Rob's like, I want to play with you guys. So we got Rob in, and Johnny was reluctant at first because he didn't want it to be a Rob Zombie rhythm section thing, whatever. But we did, and Blasco got the Aussie gig and wanted to try to do both, and we were just like, nah, it's going to be too much. But so I didn't really think of it as Helmet until Jimmy Iovine phoned me and said he wanted to make a Helmet record, and I was like, we had several labels we were talking to, like 4 or 5 labels, and there was all kind of these mediocre deals, and I was like, yeah, I'll go back where I'm feel loved and feel comfortable. Jimmy wants us back, and so then it was like Helmet. And so when I told Johnny and Rob, they were like, oh boy, that's cool, but yeah, Helmet, oh, okay. But I thought, everything I write kind of sounds like I mean, except for movie stuff and, you know, jazz stuff sounds different, but rock stuff I write sounds like fucking Helmet. You know what I mean? It's
Sure, that's you.
my voice and my riffs and my arrangements and stuff. So it's we had a bunch of material, and some of the Gandhi stuff, you know, was already had been recorded as demos, and that band was Matt Flynn, who's in Maroon 5, and my dear friend Anthony, who's in a metal band called Liege Lord, Anthony Truglio, and Christian, and a guy John Andrews who plays with Nana, who did Neun Luftballons. But
Oh yeah, fuck, classic. Right.
so over the course of a couple of years, I was kind of collecting songs, and so we didn't really. The last time I saw Stanier, he was DJing on Ludlow, at a place in Ludlow Street. And,
Yeah, probably Max Fish. I see him there a lot. He's been on the show too. Yeah.
Yeah. We've sadly we have no contact. My ex-wife and I saw Henry at the airport over Christmas, like literally 2 weeks after our last show in Reno, and he didn't say hello. We walked right past us, and we were like, Henry, and it was so, you know, when it went down, I guess, like, you know, 10 years together in a band, stuff happens, and I love those guys for what we did together musically, and we spent a lot of time together. We had a lot of just drunk and stupid nights, a lot of laughs, and also some fights. You know, I mean, you have fights in a band. It's like your family and stuff. And I utmost respect for both of them as musicians. They're both phenomenal musicians. And
absolutely.
the kind of thing when you talk about Helmet and sort of the intricacies and the part of the magic in there, like AC/DC or something that somebody can say on the outside looks seems simple or whatever. Like that, Henry had that magical feel, that thing in his playing that was just musical. And John had the exact same thing, you know, and you know, in a different way. Henry would play on the beat, John would play on top of the beat, and I would find my way, you know, pull back or play on the beat or what. So we would play a riff like Distracted. I mean, I'm not kidding you, for 25 minutes or 30 minutes, just with that riff. It felt so fucking good, and those guys got that, and they would just we would play in kind of this Zen exercise or something, and sort of experiment with the feel, push, pull, and we connect. We know we connect, an amazing musical connection. And I'll always be thankful for that. You know, I hate that shit happens between bandmates and stuff, and you know, I say I have nothing but love and respect for both of them.
That's great, man. And honestly, I want to give a huge shout out to, I came up with Dave Case, who is your bass player now in Long Island, playing shows with his bands growing up, and the current lineup. And Kyle Stevenson and I are part of this drum collective. We talk all the time.
Kyle's amazing. Everything I produce, and if I'm working in Los Angeles, I bring him in. I did a country, folky kind of female singer. We did the Gang of Four cover. We did. I just did Let It Be for this Progress Humanity, progresshumanity.org. I'm now an advisor. I like to say ambassador. There are these people in DC that are trying to end global conflict, and so we did a recording of Let It Be for like 13 or 14 countries are part of, just to sort of promote peace and promote, you know, healing, because it's been a pretty fucked up year, and you know, and the previous administration sowed a lot of divisiveness and negative stuff. So we're just trying to move on, and you know, the Helmet box is called Move On. Actually, it's which is one of the Bowie songs that we never did with Bowie, but that it's one of my favorite songs we covered. So that's the name of the box. Kind of, but Kyle played drums on it. He just slays it. He just can do
amazing.
Anything.
He's
a really good singer. You know, it's just like
he does backups with you.
Really, really good. He does the lion's share of the backups. Well, Dave and Dan sing too. They're
both great singers. Yeah, Dave was a singer in a few bands too back in the day. They're both super talented.
Called Killer Hill. That's amazing with Dan's brother Pete Guzzard, and it's just phenomenal. And Dave's band Afterbirth is fantastic. Have you heard Afterbirth? He's not the singer.
I'm familiar with it. I think I might know some of his band members, but I haven't actually gotten the chance to check it out yet.
badass. It's really great. It's really cool.
Yeah, man. Kyle, I'll give you another shout out to Kyle. Is in this collective, we do drum covers and post them online, and it's just been keeping us as drummers really active during this like horrible time that we're not out there playing. So everyone check out Kyle's drum covers online. But
Cool.
yeah, and we're coming to a close. We have about 9 minutes left, but I was saying in my intro how happy I am that, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your ass. I really mean this. This is why I want to have you on the show. I do feel like you're one of the greatest songwriters of our time, and the fact that you have continued to put out amazing music, because like you said, everything you do sounds like Helmet, because that's you. Monochrome, Size Matters, Seeing Eye Dog, Dead to the World. You know, you've continued and you're still here. I think that's so important, and I just want to point that out because it's decades, and how many bands are gone now, and you've kept the name going. So it's really not a question. It's just more of a thank you, I guess, for sticking around.
I feel really fortunate that we can still go get together and play songs. The guys know. I think if we sat down and rehearsed for 2 weeks, we could probably play 90 or 95 songs. They know.
Yeah, man.
That I know. It's amazing. Like I have this list of songs, and we'll pull out the old chestnuts, obviously, and people, and I always said whole lot. Meantime is our Whole Lot of Love. Like Led Zepp always closed with Whole Lot of Love. We close with Meantime, and I love playing it, and it's really fun. But then we'll vary the set list and stuff from the 30th tour was so much fun because we pulled out stuff we played before, like the Sabbath cover from the Jerky Boys movie. We did the Bjork thing, which is Music for a Mother Ocean, that when they were cleaning up the oil spill. I believe that was the one.
Yeah.
We did the Gigantor from that Drew Barrymore cartoon thing, and that was
I saw you guys at the Bowery when you came to Bowery Ballroom, and I was fucking floored, man. Like it was you like I'd never seen you play some of those songs, so it was a treat for everybody.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's fun for us, It's like I feel bad sometimes, like laying all this work on the dudes, but they're good for it. So.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, man, and hopefully we'll see a Betty situation in 2024 or whatever. That's just crazy to think about, but
30th Betty anniversary tour. Like, wait,
yeah.
20? Didn't we do a Betty 20th tour, 1994 to? Yeah, we did the 20th anniversary tour. People have asked me about Aftertaste, and I said I didn't, because we did a Meantime anniversary tour and then a Betty. It's like we don't want to just keep doing anniversary tours. So it's like.
I mean, I'm a fan of them. I know people, but yeah, I mean, Aftertaste is such a great record. But so we're coming to a close, Paige. But I just wanted to ask you, like, before we go, first of all, thank you, and thank you to Renee Mata. Everyone, check out Renee's band Reach. By the way, I have to give him a plug because he helped me make this happen with you. And also, anybody watching, if you tuned in too late, this whole interview is going to be on the St. Vitus Instagram from start to finish in about 5 minutes, and it's going to be on my YouTube channel as well in the next week or so. But is there anything else coming up, or anything you want to announce or let people know about before we take off?
I'm trying to think about Let It Be coming out. That should be in the next couple of weeks. I'm teaching a class with the School of Rock kids, and I got them involved in Let It Be as well. I did a movie called Pain a score that's going to come out this year, and we have another movie which the title I forget, that we haven't started yet. I have to look it up. And then the Helmet box, the cover box set, 7-inch box set, and we have a show from CBGB's that I mixed with my friend Toshi Kasai, who does Melvin's as well.
Oh, and, right.
Day Out show. So we're working on the artwork right now for that. That's what the double kind of live album thing, which we've never done before. And I just had these shows, and I wanted to mix them and do them. But other than that, I'm trying to think what I'm doing. I'm writing a piece for the Christian Brothers in Memphis, Tennessee. It's the oldest high school orchestra in the country.
Wow.
I did Pius in Atlanta a couple of years ago and had a blast. So Helmet fans are that age now where they're music teachers in schools, and they're like, "Can you write this piece for our orchestra? That it's the 150th."
That is so funny, but you're absolutely right.
It's really cool. I had a blast doing the St. Pius piece, and the orchestration is very specific because they're like, "Okay, we have 15 flutes," and I'm like, 15 flutes, and it's like, then we have
wow.
percussionists and one like, one clarinet player or whatever. So you have to figure out how to write for this.
Yeah, that's a totally different ball game. But the way that you phrase that is so true. You're the Helmet fans, like I'm 40. I don't want to make anyone feel old here, and I've been listening to Helmet since I was 15 years old. It's just crazy to think about that.
Yeah, I'm old fart. So I mean, I turned 60 this year. So
wow,
yeah,
I can't tell at all. That's wild.
I spent a lot of time sitting around jazz nerding out. So I'm going to actually, this week, before I have to fly to New York this week, if the snow lets up, but I'm recording a jazz tune for the Sling TV show thing. So that's coming up. I don't know when it's going to be for their pilot for this show, which is going to be really cool. So I'm just going to do like a jazz standard kind of thing. So
wow, that's cool, man. I love how busy you're keeping. And off the record, I might have to hit you up to ask you about the Beatles thing, because we're doing something really cool at my job around a big Beatles thing that we're announcing soon, and there could be a tie-in there. But yeah, let's stay in touch, and I hope that our tours resume when all of this is over. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, it's gonna I think it will. People are gonna be ready for music. I'm dying. It's gonna end up being close to 2 years without a gig by the time next fall rolls around.
Fuck, man, jeez, I'm going on like a year right now, but 2 years is brutal. That's brutal. Yeah.
My mind. Yeah. Cool.
Well, Paige, thank you again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It was awesome.
This has been awesome, man. And I will absolutely be in touch, and hopefully we'll get to hang in person at some point.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. I'll see you.
Stay safe out there, man.
Okay. Yeah. You too, Chris. See ya. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. That was so cool. And tune in on Wednesday. We have Josh English from 6 going on 7, and we have a special guest that we are hoping to announce soon for this Friday. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 o'clock is our new schedule. But I've been your host, Chris Enriquez. You can follow me at Chris Enriquez Drums. I'm going to do some shameless plugs. I play in a band called Spotlights and Total Meltdown, and I work for Revolver, Brooklyn, Vegan, Hard Times, and Inks Magazine. Lots of drops here, but all the support during the pandemic is greatly appreciated. So thanks, take care, stay safe. Talk to you soon.